Because my videos are watched by a pretty large audience, I have a whole spectrum of different types of players watching. I have people that maybe played the game 5 years ago and are looking to get back into it, people that are currently sort of getting into the game, I have people that are competitively playing. I have sort of this giant spectrum, this huge variety of people commenting, and I think some of my favorite comments to answer are the ones that are from casual players simply asking because they're curious why certain cards are better in the metagame. And I love those comments so much because they're not saying it in a rude way. They're not saying everyone's stupid for playing this card that I don't understand. They're simply asking, and then they're really receptive to the answer that I give them. And I think that's awesome. I love seeing someone that wants to grow and develop in this game. And really, a lot of my videos are tailored to those types of players. This one in particular, though, is super critical if you are one of those people. If you are a casual player that's looking to become a competitive player, this is the video for you. But I think in general, it can apply to a lot of different players, specifically because I'm using theories that can be applied to many different sort of strategies. But there are some ground rules that I have to set, only because the word casual and the word competitive, for that matter, can come with a lot of negative connotations depending on who you ask and how you ask them. So I just want to talk about what a casual means. So first off, a casual does not have anything to do with what deck you play. It absolutely does not. Inversely, being competitive doesn't mean you play meta decks. I think casuals, in particular that I've noticed, get that confused so often, and it's extremely frustrating because I'm seen as sort of a competitive player, so I get a lot of comments that are saying like, oh, this competitive meta sheep is just ragging on the Egyptian gods because it doesn't fit into his meta deck, even though for the last 6 months I've played Frog Paleozoics, which is definitely not meta by any standards. So I see those comments a lot, but the deck you play doesn't really affect if you're a casual or a competitive player. What really affects it is your mindset about the game. Do you play to win? Do you play to do well or just go average? Do you play in tournaments? Do you play against your friends? Do you only play online? Those sorts of things are the things that really determine if you're a casual or competitive player. For example, I am a very casual Hearthstone player. I actually do own most of the best decks just from playing it a lot, and I do play it quite often, but I'm not gonna rank up into the high ranks. I don't take it very seriously. I don't think very critically when I play the game, even though I have the meta decks, and that's kind of what I want to show you guys, is that it doesn't really matter what decks you're playing. It's more about the mindset that you carry while you're actually playing the game. And also, casual and competitive, it's not just like black and white. It's a whole spectrum of you can be extremely casual, you can be sort of middle way between casual and competitive, you can be extremely competitive. It's a whole spectrum of different options for you to have, and maybe some years you're more competitive than other years, or some years you're more casual than other years. It's all these different options, and we can't really just talk people into two different boxes because many people don't fit those particular boxes. The important thing here, and this is like probably the biggest takeaway from my entire channel in terms of how I respond to comments in certain ways or how I read certain comments in particular ways, you cannot, I mean, you simply can't. You can't apply casual strategy and casual deck building to a competitive environment. However, you can do the opposite. You can completely apply competitive mindsets and competitive strategies to casual settings and be successful. So what do I mean by this? Well, I mean that if you're a competitive player and you're trying to tell your casual friend how to beat their casual friends, the strategies a competitive player is saying will likely really work. They'll help you build your deck better, and then even though you're still a casual player, because you've now applied competitive strategies to your deck and to your playstyle, you can likely win a lot more games even though you're only playing casual games. However, many of the casual sort of theories and the casual combos and the casual deck building philosophies do not apply to competitive environments. And that is the main point of this video, where we are talking about surface level analysis, which I believe is the biggest thing holding back many casual players that wish to become competitive. Or in another way, I think that people that watch my videos that are very casual, I think if they apply this surface level analysis, they're confused by many of the things that I'm saying. So I really wanted to dedicate a video to it. I know that it may sort of anger some people, but I'm trying to go through this as pleasantly as possible. I'm not really accusing anyone. Like I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with being a casual player, but you can't apply casual strategies and casual combos to a competitive environment, and all of my videos are generally competitively oriented. I'm talking about cards that saw success in the past and why they were successful, or cards that didn't see success in the past and why they were not successful, and I'm talking about all of that in a competitive sense, not a casual one. In today's video, we're going to explain why. Now, I've rambled on long enough, but I did feel I need to set up all that stuff, so let's jump right in. In short, surface level analysis is simply looking at two or more cards and if they will work together once, ignoring every other variable. That's basically what it is. That's what I've come to see, and I get a ton of comments relating to why a card is better than I said it was, particularly in like the structure deck reviews or in any of the why nobody plays videos, and many of those comments are simply the surface level analysis. So I'm going to go through some of the most common examples that I've ever seen, starting with the one that is from the Egyptian God video that I saw a lot, and that is that Slifer the Sky Dragon works with infinite cards. If you don't know, infinite cards, it's a continuous spell card, lets you have any amount of cards in your hand. So what is the surface level analysis on this combo here, and what is the deeper level analysis that shows us that it's not a good combo? So the surface level analysis is simply looking at Slifer, seeing that it gains attack based on cards in your hand, and then saying, oh, he said that Slifer often doesn't have more attack than like 3,000. That's not enough. How can I sort of make this card have more attack? Well, the answer to them is to play infinite cards, because now you can have infinite cards in your hand. That's the surface level analysis. So what's the deeper analysis? Well, the deeper analysis is looking at that and saying, okay, he already said it's difficult to get out Slifer, even in the best case scenario, which is basically passing first turn with a set scapegoat and then flipping it on your opponent's end phase and then making some links and then attributing them for Slifer. That's like the best case scenario where you've only had to wait one turn and lose one card to summon Slifer. But even with that happening, you only have like 4 or 5 other cards in your hand, and they're saying, okay, now I can play infinite cards, and by the way, we're talking about 3 unsearchable cards, Scapegoat, Slifer, and infinite cards, and they're thinking, okay, if you have infinite cards, well, that solves the issue. What they're not looking at is, well, how do you actually draw all those cards? I mean, to make use of infinite cards, you have to have more than 6 cards in your hand, which is pretty tricky. I can't really remember the last time I actually had 7 cards in my hand during an end phase. It very rarely happens, let alone in decks that are playing cards like the God cards. So you can kind of see when we look at the deeper level analysis, we can look at the consistency of the combo, we can look at will it actually do anything after you do it? I mean, if you activate infinite cards, it doesn't suddenly draw you a bunch of things. There's not a ton of cards, especially because a lot of casual players don't like playing cards like Pot of Desires. It's really hard to actually get use out of that infinite cards. So you can see when we go to the deeper level analysis, that combo suddenly doesn't look as good. The other one that I see, oh my god, I see this one all the time because I've talked about both these cards in several different videos, and that is Pot of Desires and Soul Absorption. So if you activate Soul Absorption, you activate Pot of Desires, you gain a bunch of life points, and this is like commonly seen because I've mentioned that Pot of Desires, the banishing doesn't really matter, so this is a way to make it quote-unquote matter, but I've also mentioned Soul Absorption in a video of Do Nothing cards where I talk about cards that really don't have a place in competitive decks. So what is the surface level analysis? Well, surface level analysis is, oh boy, I'm gaining a lot of life points. The deeper analysis is a lot of different things. It's life points don't matter. It's Soul Absorption doesn't gain you any advantage or tempo. It's the fact that if you draw multiple Soul Absorptions and a 5 card going first hand without Pot of Desires, then you basically have 3 dead cards in your hand. It's looking at all of these things that I think a lot of people that are casual simply don't look at because they're only looking at the one combo, the one combination of cards that they can actually find to make use of them. The last instance that I want to mention, and also the one that originally got me thinking about this because I saw this quote-unquote combo and I really didn't understand how anyone could ever think this would be viable, but that is the interaction between Dark Bribe and Trickstar Lycoris. So people kept saying on the Why Nobody Plays Dark Bribe video, well, it's really good in Trickstars, and I kept wondering, how can anyone think that that matters? So first of all, we're back on the life points doesn't matter debate, so the reason that this doesn't matter is because you're only doing, at most, 400 more damage, assuming you have Lycoris and a light stage. I suppose you could have multiple Lycorises, but even that isn't that much, and I saw this and I was just like, okay, so people are valuing not only like the life points, but they're also devaluing the negative card advantage, which was the main argument for why Dark Bribe was bad. And I was thinking, well, what if you draw the Dark Bribe and you don't have Lycris, or it's just such a bad card already? How can that 200 or 400 or maybe 600 damage really make a difference? And that's kind of what originally got me thinking of this sort of surface level analysis. But anyway, what is the takeaway from here? Well, surface level analysis doesn't factor in every scenario. It doesn't even factor in the most likely scenarios. It only factors in one scenario of 2 cards or 3 cards working together. And that's really not good because it doesn't factor in card advantage or speed or consistency. It just ignores all of that stuff just to find one instance, maybe in some cases 2 instances where some cards work together. And if you are trying to play a deck competitively, that's simply not going to cut it. Now, why do I mention this? Well, I mention this because there are so many casual players that comment on my videos saying, you know, I love this 2-card combo and I go to tournaments and I'm not doing well with it and I don't understand because it seems really good. Well, how's gaining 5,000 life points off of soul absorption bad? Well, if you just look at sort of that really shortened sentence of like, oh yeah, I'm sure I would just gain 5,000 life points. That sounds pretty good. But if you say that and you ignore the card advantage or the consistency of actually drawing the soul absorption or not drawing it when you have it with Pot of Desires and all these sort of scenarios, well, then it sounds good, but in practice, it's not that good. So surface level analysis plays are more about theory rather than practice, but it's not good theory, it's bad theory, and actually it'll hold you back if every single card in your deck is in there because of this sort of 2-card combo that might come up sometimes. You're going to have a really tough time not only at even just a short tournament like a locals, but if you ever try to go to like a regionals, you're going to have a terrible time because every round you're just going to draw these really mismatched hands. You're going to draw 3 soul absorption going first and be like, oh, this is terrible, why did I think this combo was good? Or you're going to end the game, lose the game, and then flip over the next 10 cards on your deck to tell your opponent, oh, I almost had you, if you would have just waited 5 turns without doing anything. Anyway, yeah, I just want to talk about this because a lot of people do comment and talk about, like, or they ask me, how do I sort of build decks better? And by the way to build decks better is to not do surface level analysis. Whenever you think of a combo, whenever you think of a deck, don't think about it in the most optimal of scenarios, because any deck is good when it's doing well, when it's drawing well, when it's getting its combos off. Think of the deck when it draws its suboptimal or even bad hands, and then you can truly find out if it's a good deck or a bad deck. And just to wrap it up real quickly here, this is like the reason that Chaos Max isn't a good card. If you only think of Chaos Max when it's on the field, well then yeah, it's pretty good. But when you actually think of Chaos Max from a competitive standpoint, you're thinking of all the games where you draw 2 Chaos Max and no Ritual Spells, or Ritual Spells and no Chaos Max, where your Manju gets hit by Ash and you just have a Chaos Max in your hand. Competitive players are thinking of all those scenarios, not just when you actually successfully summon it. But anyway, that is going to wrap up this discussion video. Hopefully you guys learned something from it. I will see you later. Goodbye.